IgnitED, the social justice learning podcast, delivers honest conversations about the intersection of arts and education through a social justice lens. Moderator and teaching artist Wincy Terry Bryant, that's me, speaks with experts on various topics related to social justice and arts education. These conversations will give listeners the tools to create more equitable classrooms and navigate the realities of school and community programs. Listeners can earn professional development certificates. Arts IgnitED, the social justice learning podcast, is part of NJPAC's Standing in Solidarity programming, a social justice series of events and initiatives promoting a more civil and equitable society. What's up, everybody? It's Wincy Terry Bryant, your host for the Arts IgnitED podcast, an extension of NJPAC's Standing in Solidarity program developed by the Arts Education team. Our experts light up the mic with honest conversations that welcome social justice topics into the classroom and spark change in any learning space. I'm joined by some incredible leaders in the New Jersey arts and activism community, and I'm so excited to introduce them to you. We have with us Devon Denos, who is the newly appointed Director of Visual and Performing Arts for Newark's Board of Education. Wendy Lisco, Executive Director of Arts Ed New Jersey. Lauren Meehan, Director of Arts Ed Newark. And Italy Jare Lee, rising sophomore at NYU's Tisch School of the Arts and the 2022 New Jersey State Champion of Poetry Out Loud. Welcome, everybody. Let's take a moment and have you all introduce yourself and just kind of let us know what brings you to our conversation today.
Well, thank you so much, Wincy, and greetings to all of our listeners. I am the very excited and passionate and newly appointed Director of Visual and Performing Arts for, yes, the largest school district in the state of New Jersey, the Newark Board of Education. I am Devon Denos. So why not would be my question. It, of course, was a yes when asked about this opportunity for this inaugural podcast experience, because I serve not only in a leadership role within the district and just advocating and supporting arts education, but I'm also a parent in the community. So being able to look at the importance of civic engagement, the impact of the arts on all of my children's lives, on the lives of all of the over 39,000 students that are served within the Newark Board of Education, myself, as a creative, there was no way I would not take on this opportunity. So it is an honor really to be a part of this experience and to just share and engage in this really rich dialogue and discourse that I know we will have today. So thank you again, Wincy. It is an honor. Passing it on over to Wendy.
Thank you, Devon, and thank you, Wincy and JPAC team for this opportunity at such an important time to talk about such important issues. I am Wendy Lisco, and I am currently the Executive Director of Arts Ed New Jersey. We're an organization that fights for arts education for every one of the 1.3 million children in our public schools and the 8,600 teachers, art teachers working to support them to ensure that they have arts education that's high quality every day and every year. So that's what we do. And my pathway to this role began with the degree in education and then a 20-year career as a theater director and a dramaturg and casting director and producer. And that was followed by 17 years in philanthropy, supporting arts and arts education. And I have to say that all of these jobs were and are my way of fighting the fight for a better world through the arts. It's a powerful tool. I remember the day I think I was 18, and I realized that I may not be the type of person who would march in rallies, but my pathway was going to be committing to the power of theater, the power of storytelling, and the power of education to change hearts and minds. I thought we could get further that way. And so I have to say that most of my choices in life have been based on this core belief, and the core belief that the arts will, to quote the Martin Luther King, who popularized this idea that, we could bend the world towards justice with the arts. And this idea, though, that we need benders, right? It's not going to happen naturally. And I believe that the arts are the benders. And so I am going to pass it on to Lauren.
Thank you, Wendy, and thank you, Wincy, for hosting us, and NJPAC for inviting us here for this really wonderful conversation. I'm Lauren Meehan, the Director of IgnitED Newark. We're an organization that works towards making sure that all of the 80,000 school-aged children here in the city of Newark have access to high-quality arts education, both in school and out of school. And what brings me to that work in particular is my own journey as a student here in the state of New Jersey when I was 9 years old. I had the opportunity to play the violin for free at school. And by accessing that instrument, my whole life really changed. Turned out I was pretty good at the violin, and I got opportunities to play in ensembles at school and in a community orchestra, and actually got my first stamp in my passport because of the violin. I got to go to college for free because of the violin. And so it really opened a lot of doors and created a lot of opportunities for me. And so I'm lucky that every day I get to wake up and fight for the young people in the city of Newark to have the opportunity and the access to the same kinds of experiences and other kinds of arts experiences. And so when I was invited to this conversation today, it was like a no-brainer. It was like, of course, I would love to share what I've learned in this role, helping to organize around the issue of arts education access, but also as a citizen who's been really engaged and came from a household with really active and engaged parents. So I always enjoy the opportunity to help people claim the things they want for their communities, and I'm excited to be here. So thanks for having me, and I'm going to now pass it off to Italy.
Hello. Thank you, Lauren. That was gorgeous and amazing. We love to hear the childhood lore. I'm Italy. I'm 19 years old, and I'm currently a sophomore at NYU Tisch. I work very, very closely with ArtsEd New Jersey. I was just their recent Youth Arts Ed facilitator, where I facilitated a student council, and we worked on initiatives to get ArtsEd campaign directly into schools and directly into their clubs, and just getting that initiative of getting an equal arts education all around. And what brings me to this work immensely is honestly that opportunity to start working closely with ArtsEd NJ through Poetry Out Loud. It was very random, but it was very much a blessing, because seeing their initiative and seeing their mission, I started to become very passionate about making sure that all spaces are full of diversity, not just for the state, not for the sake of a status quota, but for the sake of actual accessibility, for actual knowledge on what we can attain as young Black and Brown students. So I'm just here to bring a more niche perspective for younger Black and Brown students inside of New Jersey as far as arts education. And I'll pass it right back to Wincy.
All right. Well, thank you all. I'm so excited to be hosting this conversation. I am Wincy Terry Bryant again, and I am an NJPAC teaching artist. And I started with NJPAC back in the late 90s. I think it was 98. It's been so long now. And before I came to NJPAC, I started a series of musically educating assembly programs that I take throughout New Jersey to expose young audiences to the performing arts, because what I realize is that when you're a school age student, you may have not ever seen a live band. You may not have ever walked up and had a conversation with musicians. And I was on the road with some famous artists. And when I came off the road, one of the things I really wanted to do was I wanted to stay in the field of the arts, but use my art to expose children and help them learn things. Because I know I could learn lyrics a lot faster than I could like memorize any facts. So I wanted to give that to students. And what I learned was that it was easier for people to have difficult conversations if you embedded those topics in the arts. So I started with like history programs, and it developed into like a series of Black history, women's history, drug awareness, character education, where I take professional actors and professional musicians into schools and we perform these vignettes. And then in between, I narrate and share important facts with students. And we have so many programs. And right now, I sit on the New Jersey Coalition Against Human Trafficking, and I bring this work to that space, excuse me, to that space so that we can talk about, like I said, difficult topics using the performing arts. So this was a no-brainer for me when NJPAC approached me about hosting a conversation about how important it is to vote and how the arts can really envelop any topic at all and make people snap their fingers or clap their hands or move their bodies or just take it in a way that if it was just a talking head, they would not be able to digest it. So I am again so honored to have these heavyweights here from this space, because what we also know is that people seem to value information sometimes over experience. And so you could sit in a class of teachers like in a university who could tell you about arts who maybe don't have an arts practice, or could tell you about business who have never run a business. But I'm so excited that you ladies are here because you are experience like personified. So when we launch this conversation, people who are artists and people who are arts administrators and people who have access to the arts and classroom teachers are all going to hear avenues where they can bring this work through the arts to people who may not otherwise be willing to listen. So let's jump in to this conversation. I'm really, really excited. And I want to start with, a question. So I know what the arts can do. You know what the arts can do. But I'm hoping that our listeners will learn today in a way that they didn't know before what's possible through the arts. So let me ask this. Think about how you've seen the arts or how you've used the arts in a way that has impacted deep conversations. And I'd like to talk about it in terms of voting, because we know that this is we're in a voting conversation and a lot of people are trying to get people out to vote. How have you seen the arts, or how have you used the arts to impact voting or to send a message about any community issue? And I want to throw that to Wendy first.
Yeah, thank you. I'm thinking of this a little bit more through the community change lens, and realizing that, as I sort of started, this is what I've done all my life and others do all their lives. There are great playwrights. I would find the best plays that were telling from a personal perspective what it felt like to be inside an issue, which could change a heart and mind in a way that if I just sat there and ranted at you, which I could do very easily, it made people feel and get in people's shoes. So, that is sort of just a general piece of that. And one of the things that I realized, this kind of had a name, artivism, and I wasn't really introduced to it until I was talking. I've seen it in action. I have a colleague who I work with, Social Impact Studios. She's got posters for the people, which is collecting all the WPA posters from the 30s and 40s, which when you think about it, that was a federally funded program to help change people's ideas and concepts around really important issues and the way they behaved in the world. And it was putting artists to work. So this idea of artivism, obviously that's art and activism put together. was introduced to us through a teacher in Patterson Schools who has an artivism course that she teaches, and it's adapted from kindergarten to high school, right? Teaching students about the history of artivism, helping kids to first identify their issues that matter to them, because it all starts with identifying what you care about, and then giving them the tools to articulate what's on their mind and use the arts. So I'm really interested in this, and I know that Italy, you were part of really doing some research around that. You might have a general other perspective, but I think that as educators, we can lean in to naming that artivism is part of advancing democracy.
Yeah, I love that, artivism. I love that vocabulary word. I want to hear from Italy, but so I'm a teaching artist at NJPAC, and it's where we use the performing arts to teach the regular school curriculum or to bring up social topics. And I love that it's so empowering. Like you said, Wendy, very young students get empowered by learning to use their art form or the arts, even if they don't feel like they have a particular art form, using the arts to say what they need to say. And I mean, like, we've all seen it, even if you don't know that you've seen it. Like, if you heard Aretha say RESPCT, like, she taught us, about respect. And Marvin Gaye said, what's going on? And so we learned that, like, you could, like I said, you could be like moving and grooving to something. But then when you kind of dig into the lyrics, you realize, wow, this is a real topic that I'm learning more about in such a non-threatening way, because I'm enjoying what I'm learning. Italy, talk to us.
Yes, I'm so happy that you brought that up, because I think the beautiful thing about art, and the reason why I'm so connected to it, is that I think that in terms of activism, it is one of the avenues where it can be enjoyed and celebrated while also being inherently understood without feeling like a whoosh of like, whoa, the world is ending and we're all in impending doom. And I think that, we definitely live inside of a world where you're constantly exposed to all of the tragedies that are happening every single day. But the beautiful thing about art and artivism as a whole is that it provides a space of where you can enjoy something and groove to something and feel something, but also understand the issue at hand and be motivated as well through that groove or that performance aspect that you may get. And it was through doing the Youth Arts Ed Council that we talked about artivism. We talked about the different examples. Marvin Gaye, you sung it beautifully, by the way. You ate that. Marvin Gaye, Bob Marley, Alicia Keys, a bunch of people. Like, artists are doing their big one when it comes to artivism, and I think that in terms of that, there needs to be more of an eye on art that is really speaking to our youth, particularly in this time, especially now that we are coming to a very, 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 very crucial voting season. And I think that the beautiful thing about art right now is that it can educate people and it can educate them about what's going on and give them the information at hand and let them be impacted by it. And by them being impacted by it, they're moved to make an educated decision whilst being delved into said art. So yeah, I think it's beautiful in that way.
And can I just add that Italy wrote a poem for Arts Ed New Jersey's launch of multiple new advocacy campaign called Arts Cry, that every time I listen to and watch the video that we made with it, just not only do I cry, it gets me inspired. And so I think it's going to be attached at the end, and I hope people listen to Italy bringing poetry to activism.
Yeah. You're gonna love that. I watched it, and everybody needs to see it. It totally gave me chills. Italy, I'm not saying this because you said I sound wonderful, but you are my new best friend right now. Okay, I got to tell you that. But yeah, I'm so proud of you, Italy, because you're so responsible about your art. I mean, the arts are so powerful in terms of like artists, you have like a metron, like people who will follow you just because they love your talent, and then you can kind of say anything you want to say. And I think about that often when you have people who are like kind of lifted up and they have a following, I'm saying you could get people to just kind of come along with whatever you're talking about. So why not talk about something really like responsible? So I want to throw it to Devon, because Devon, you definitely have skin in the game. I mean, you're over this district, this huge district. You mentioned it, the largest district. I was raised in Newark, and so I love Newark. But you believe in what's possible in the district, so much so that you have your kids in the district. And I know a lot of men who they may be running a district, but their kids go someplace else. So I think it speaks volumes that your kids are in the district. And we want to hear from you, like, talk to us. What do you think about the arts and what's possible through the arts?
Thank you so much, Wincy. And you are correct, because I am a proud parent right here in Newark. As you mentioned, my oldest daughter is now a freshman in college. She was a dance major at Arts High School. My 15-year-old is a sophomore theater major at Arts High School. And my 12-year-old is actually at First Avenue Elementary School. And he has shifted from theater, and now he's going to be doing music as a rising seventh grader, right? So I believe in the district, I believe in this city, and I absolutely know the power of the arts. And as I was listening to Wendy in Italy, what I know from this lens in being in these spaces as a director now, but as a former principal, as a former vice principal of visual and performing arts, and then teacher before that, the arts, it just provides a safe space, right? So that is the why. When we talk about, how we're moving to this music and how we're able to connect and share this, it is because we see in classrooms, in the arts classrooms, children are able to flourish. They're able to be themselves. They're able to express freely. And so that is why the arts becomes now, when we look at this artivism, it is the best place to really move into what that activism looks like, right? And civic engagement, because it creates such a safe space. We see that during the school year. We see that during the summer months, right? In all of our programming throughout this city and in the district, that the feedback is always positive, right? And parents are always saying, wow, my child has come out of their shell now. Wow, my child is able to understand diverse ways of thinking, right? And it is a universal language. And one of the quotes I love, Barbara Jordan, and I shared that with the staff here now in my new role, it is something where you don't need a translator, right? We get it. It doesn't matter the language we speak. It doesn't matter our background. It's something that we can come together and really engage in those difficult conversations. That when you're maybe in that other type of classroom, you may not want to engage the same way as you will when I go through to different schools and see, as Wendy said, right, this production, this theater production, and you see that they've gone there. They've gone to that difficult conversation. So, Wincy, absolutely, I am proud to not just be a director, but as you said, I'm a parent, and I know the impact of the arts and how it actually brings us together. It has the power to do that. And so, of course, if we have a safe space to discuss and deal with real things, then we can then make movement and take action. So, and Italy, you're going to have a fight for the new BFFs, by the way, okay? So.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, Devon. Yeah. This is an important year, but really every year is important. And what we want young people to understand is that they have a voice. So how can we help young people understand the deeper impact of voting? We know this is an election year, but there are years in between that we can be doing things that will have an impact on the greater or the on like a year like this. So let's talk about how we can help young people understand the deeper impact of voting. And Lauren, I want to hear your voice. So Lauren Meehan, what do you think about ways to help young people understand the deeper impact of voting?
I think, and I say this to all folks, not just to young people in particular, but I think
good.
reminding us that, to your earlier note, yes, it's an election year. We often think about presidential elections and sort of those large, every 4 years elections, but there are so many important elections that don't take place in November every 4 years.
Right.
And those tend to have the largest impact on our everyday lives. So those are our city council elections. Those are our school board elections. Those are our local, state, in the case of New Jersey, assemblymen and senators, right, that represent us on the state level. And so reminding folks of the closer it is to where you live in terms of the elected body, the more impact it's going to have on your day-to-day life. And so if you really want to make change in your community, it's really important to pay attention to participate in, and to rally around candidates who support the things that you care about in your community, because that is where, most of the change you're going to see that's going to directly impact your life happens. And so bringing that to light. And then also for our young people, not everyone's 18. So, talking to our high school students and even middle school students who are really still passionate, they care about issues, they want to make change in their communities. I think it's about helping young people understand, and communities at large as well, understand all the other ways that you can organize as a community in order to make change. And I think the arts are such a brilliant tool for that, because that's where the party's at. It's really a different enterprise to get people to gather together when there's music and song, when there's dancing, when there's, I always love to call on one of our brilliant healing-centered artists who talks about, the hip-hop movement is a social movement, right? Arts education had been stripped from the public school system in New York City, and there was really a direct response with what we were seeing in terms of the dance movements, the music movements, right? And it was about using anything and everything to create art as a direct response and a direct rebellion to the fact that it had been taken out of the public schools. And so, helping young people understand they do have power, they do have a voice, and what are some of the other ways, if they're not able to vote, that they can still have a role in what's happening in their communities.
No, that's really great. Italy, you're a young person. What would you add to that?
I think something very important right now, and I feel like people touch on it, but a lot of people don't really dig deep into what the real problem is that ever since COVID especially, my generation in particularly has been narrowed into their phones, a whole lot more than what it was before COVID. This next generation, the reading efficiency skills are extremely low. These are not things that are being talked about because of this extreme access that we have to our phones. And in reference to the voting, there's a lot of misinformation that I will see occur on social media. So I've been seeing a lot of participating in groupthink, because I think that COVID kind of rewired everybody to isolate, and all we had was our phones. So community it went from this external thing to a very internal thing. And because of that, everybody takes what they see on their phone and they're like, that's the new truth, and they run with it. And they run with every single new truth rather than finding research and resources. So I think that the best thing that we could do right now for the youth in terms of that impact on this upcoming election is generally just passing around resources, passing around valid resources, not just TikToks of people talking about their opinions, numbers, statistics, local ones, state ones, national ones, on all levels, because a lot of these students, my age, younger, and even a little bit older, are not really educated about what is really happening, both in their communities and outside of their communities, and it's influencing them in, I wouldn't say a right or wrong direction, but more so a direction that's not based in an educated stance in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. No, that's good. I'm glad you said that. From an educated standpoint, so you can do so much more if you're educated, if you're really well informed, and you guys are bringing up something about somebody said the arts bring us all together, and what I know is that when I was being raised, when I was brought up my neighborhood, like you live in the neighborhood, a lot of times with people who look like you. You go to school with people who look like you. And so you don't really know. And then you guys like go to middle school, you all kind of like move together. So you go to high school with people who look like you. And it's really not until you go to college, if you go to college, do you start like getting introduced to other people's worlds, unless there are like the arts somehow. So when you're in a band, like I remember getting in bands with people who like nobody looked like me in a band, but it didn't matter because we were all speaking the same language, and somebody talked about it being a universal language. So I could like step up to a band right now and say, you know, I want to sing Miss B in B flat. And then we all suddenly are doing something together. Or like, you know, Wendy was talking about a play. When you get in a play and you could see people of different nationalities and shades and, you know, people who love different things, and you are kind of all together. So you become a family. So when people, when I started doing the work that I do, I realized that like it really is a gift to bring children plays with people who look and sound and think differently from them so that they can be introduced. Otherwise, they may never get to experience people from different genres. And, you know, I heard Michelle Obama say once, you can't hate up close. Once you get to know somebody, when you get close to somebody, then you get to see that, you know, they're a human just like you. And so I love like what you all are talking about and how powerful the arts are for having these conversations and helping me see that, you know, I really like you. Wow, we like some of the same foods. Wow, you know, we like some of the same clothes. You know, we like some of the same music. We're both in this play. We're both trying to learn our lines. It just kind of puts us all on a level playing field. And I love that about the arts. And, you know, I know, Wendy, you deal with a lot of, you know, young people, like you're shouting out Italy and like, you know, her work. What's your thought about the deeper impact of voting through the arts?
First of all, the biggest aha moment I had about advocacy was that legislators really don't know everything, and they can't know everything. And it's our job as the public to inform them about what is going on, what's happening, where the problems are. And I would add to what I was going to say before, you know, that Italy says with real facts, right? Good information that they can act on. But Lauren also talked about school boards, and I think a lot about school boards now because the role of a school board hasn't necessarily changed, but their power and where their focus is has been changing since COVID. And sometimes boards are fear-based. They're worried about multiple things that go way beyond making sure that the budget is balanced. And I think it's really important that people spend more of their time understanding who is getting on your school board, because they are making the decisions that determine the future of our children. If they are fearful and don't want certain topics to be discussed, if they want certain books off the shelves, they don't believe in the arts as a tool, or it's the first thing that they might cut. Because I'll tell you, the job right now as a superintendent, principal, school board member is not easy, right? The budgets are, I mean, we always talk about a fiscal cliff for schools, but like this is a new fiscal cliff that they are having to make really difficult decisions. And we need to make sure that we are talking to our school board members, understand what their position is on the arts, and keep informing them about how important it is. At Arts in New Jersey, and I want people to look for this, we every October we launch a school board candidate survey. Now, it won't, Newark's is off schedule. Their elections are not on this cycle, but many other districts across the state, we list and we ask every school board candidate to list their views on arts education and publish it. Now, we're not advocating for you to vote for anybody, but it's an opportunity to say, where do they stand? Because it's usually not an issue that they talk about if they have a, some sort of community meeting. So I really encourage people to look at that. And if they're not on it, ask why they're not on it. because they sometimes will get to this question. It's an information too. We tell them, do you understand the law and that there are requirements? So it's an education tool. And if you get to the question where will you support the arts? Should there be a threat to their continuation or budget cuts? Sometimes people don't answer that question. And I think it's up to our youth and their families to hold them accountable to answering those questions.
Devon, I want you to speak to this conversation. What's there for you? What's coming up for you in this conversation?
Thank you so much, Wincy. Because, as I was listening again, to Wendy and even what Italy said, and Italy, really, you articulated that so well in terms of the shift for what community became during COVID and how we're trying to pull ourselves kind of out of that still, right? But what I am really, really proud to speak to and excited about is, while we know about all the cuts, right, with arts funding, the fact is, within the Newark Board of Education, we are seeing an increase of arts educators across this huge district. We are seeing actually new positions for arts administrators across schools now. So there is no question about Newark Board of Education and our school board, right, and their stance and their views on arts education, the number of residencies that we have across our schools, the programming that we have, and the opportunities. And of course, we're still looking to grow that, right? And we're still looking to do that work. And I'm thankful for the partnerships that we have with NJPAC, right? With ArtsEd Newark, with ArtsEd New Jersey. Like I'm really grateful for that. And I'm excited to be in this role, right? To get moving even faster with the work. But we are growing here, right? And so what Wendy said is very critical. What are the views? And again, the other element is that we have a student representative that sits on our school board, which we know should be the case for all districts and cities, but it is not. But we do. And that student has a voice, and that student, back to the point of that kind of sense of community and how we come together, that student representative is tasked to get everyone's voice across those schools, to bring all of those voices to the table, and given the tools to understand the power of democracy, to understand, yes, someone voted for you to be in that seat as a student. And that's one aspect. And then I just want to speak quickly to the fact that the other opportunity for our students here in our district for really understanding, and back to Italy's point, how do we give them the knowledge, right? Or how do we get them invested in seeking knowledge and the facts, right? We all of the schools have their student council, and it is a requirement. And there are elections, and those are requirements. And so our students, our young people, are engaged in that process of what does that look like? How does someone explain and articulate their beliefs, their values? What is their platform? What are they looking to improve in your school, even at a very young age? And again, we're looking at the arts, right? Because how are they telling their stories? And you would be surprised and moved to see some of the creativity that comes about during these elections across our schools. So absolutely, Italy and Wendy, it is about on a local level, right, first. Because as Lauren mentioned also, right, we're looking at what are the impacts directly on the schools, and that's coming from that local level. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Lauren, you have something that you could add to this conversation?
Yeah, I think I wanted to elevate something that Devon just mentioned around having partners like ArtsEd Newark and ArtsEd New Jersey. And I think one of the things I want to also point out that is really important as we think about organizing communities and helping inform people and make sure that they have good information is leveraging community organizations that are working really, really hard in that public interest. And so, there are challenges, as we've discussed, at the district level, and we are lucky we have a really engaged, really committed school district when it comes to arts education in Newark. But not all communities have that, right? And there are still limitations within the bureaucracy of working for a school system or working for a city that limit even the most public service-oriented elected official sometimes in their ability to execute. And so one of the things I always love to elevate to our all of our community partners and all of the people that sit at our table is that there's something really unique in the way that Arts Ed New Jersey and Arts Ed Newark exist in this other space, right? We are not necessarily, like, my paycheck doesn't get signed by anybody from Newark Board of Education. It doesn't get signed by anybody from the city of Newark. And so we have a flexibility and a responsiveness, right? There's ways we can move around community and with community and through community that sometimes even the most empowered and caring and passionate public servant cannot. And so I think it's those public nonprofit partnerships and relationships with organizations like Arts Ed New Jersey, organizations like Arts Ed Newark, when we're specifically talking about arts education here in the state. But I think there's other organizations like, you know, the NAACP and all the work they're doing with ACTSO with young people to help them be more engaged and find good information and get registered to vote and be more active in their communities. And so that's just something else I want to elevate for us as we think about how do we get young people engaged. I think there's a lot of really great community organizations that are working really, really hard to inform young people and parents and to sort of play that intermediary role and have that flexibility and that nimbleness because they're not as limited by legislation sometimes to be able to help affect change and support districts and support the public in finding those solutions together.
Yeah. No, that's great, Lauren. And you know, thank you for elevating that and talking about the other organizations. Because, you know, I know some districts might feel, they might feel a little restricted, and hearing this, there might be a little like FOMO, like, well, how come we're not doing that? But you're right. There are other organizations where we can kind of lean into. And I'm so excited to hear that there is an increase in arts educators in Newark. I know Newark it's a huge district. And I know as an NJPAC teaching artist, I've done a lot of work in Newark. I love that there's been like a long-standing relationship. I'm happy that you're there, Devon, to kind of even ramp it up even more. For our listeners, I just hope you're understanding that arts education isn't necessarily teaching students to perform. We want you to understand that. So if you are listening to this and you're feeling like, okay, well, we already have music teachers and we already have art teachers, that's not what this is. Arts education is where you kind of lift up another topic using the arts, and you can teach children to perform, but that's not solely what arts education is. So we're not necessarily teaching students to perform, but also using the arts to teach other topics. So Devon mentioned the word residency. And for those of you who are not clear what a residency is, you would have like a visiting artist, a professional performer would visit a classroom over like a series. It could be 5 sessions, 10, 20 sessions, whatever the school and the teaching artist or the arts organization, for in this case, it might be NJPAC, whatever the relationship, whatever you decided together for the length of the residency and then the number of visits, that professional performer would visit the classroom and work with a group of students, like taking them through an arts process with a particular goal in mind. That may or may not be proficiency in an instrument. It could be social emotional learning. It could be like through these plays. Wendy like talked about some plays earlier, and Lauren's talking about like, you know, different organizations, because there are other arts organizations and other organizations, period, that would want to expose students to how the arts could help you learn self-regulation or learn to express yourself or learn to work with others. You know, there's a study that says that people lose their jobs not because they can't do the job, but because they can't work with other people. And so the arts is a way to help people, you know, just kind of work together. And Wendy, I feel like you might want to share something.
I do want to mention a very specific thing that I think people can do around advancing arts education, and that is understanding the budget of a school district. Understanding where the arts money is. If you have to go to the business administrator, sometimes in some districts, they have a lot of power. And how funds get distributed and where the federal dollars flow towards arts education. And sometimes when schools tell you, they'll say to you, oh, the arts budget has increased, even though maybe they've cut a teacher or they've cut a program. And it's because of, you really have to ask them to separate out the salaries from the resources. And the other really critical thing to understand, and we'll put in this budget document we have, is that these decisions get decided for the following year way before it comes to your consciousness. So, Devon, I think I'm correct. Like in October and by November, you've had to ask for your professional learning budget for the following year. By February, boards are submitting their budgets to the department. And so things are already far along in process. So now is actually the time to be looking towards the future. And I don't think most people understand that. I know it was a wake-up call for me.
I just think it's brilliant that Wendy shares this because she also helps support our Arts Ambassadors program, which Arts Ed Newark has been running for a couple of years now, where we actually provide advocacy tools and information to parents and caregivers to help them advocate for more arts education in their communities. And so we've seen, some of the most incredible organizing and advocacy work come out of that parent group. And one of the key things we spend time on is, we call it Follow the Money, but it is an exercise where we teach folks where to access their school budget, how to read that school budget, to understand just what Wendy was talking about, that nuance between, salaries is separate. So I have to see if they have salaries for an art teacher, and then I have to see what the resources are. And so we spend a lot of time helping folks not only understand the constitutional mandate in New Jersey, something that's very unique to our state. There aren't that many states across the country that require an arts education. And in New Jersey, it's in a very specific way that allows you to really build expertise in an art form and a discipline throughout your middle school and high school years, so that if you choose to be a professional artist, which, there's so many rich things about an arts education that have nothing to do with whether or not you will become a professional artist. But if you choose to do so, right, you've reached a certain level of competency. So helping people understand that, which I think a lot of parents are like, how did I not know that this was a requirement? And how to have those conversations with your school leader, right? To not be combative, but to maybe say, hey, can you break this down for me? Can we have a conversation? I want to better understand how resources are being allocated for arts in my child's school. Other challenges like, students with IEPs and understanding what they're entitled to. So there's a lot of good information. And that's why I referred earlier to like finding those organizations in your community that can help provide those kinds of tools and resources, because it is a complicated system, right? Bureaucracies are not easy to navigate and not easy to manage. And so we spend a lot of time really helping and seeing the way those parents immediately, we did that Follow the Money exercise, and I think it was February. They were at that March school board meeting for MBOE asking questions about, how come the district doesn't have a line for the arts budget? How come I have to go to every school in the district to see how money is being invested in arts education? And they've actually created a policy brief, which is going to be up on our website soon. And they're putting together a plan on how to share that policy brief with folks at the city level, but also at the state, right, who also has a role and also has an impact on how things are happening on the ground in terms of arts education. And so, I think how can we also do the work as artists, arts educators, as, in the case of Wendy and I, nonprofit organizations, to really make sure people have all of the information and the tools they need to be able to navigate those systems and do it in a way that's like productive. Like, we're very clear too. We're like, this is not necessarily about being combative, because I think so much of what we see in the landscape right now politically is like people shouting at each other.
Right.
And so really helping people, find their way to the right person and find their way through those conversations so that everybody can sort of move towards that common goal.
Just to add on, I think the other piece of it, right, is what next? right? So it is understanding, when is budget season and where is the money, right? How much is allocated? But then what next, right? And so am I going to this knowing what I'm asking for? Whether I'm a parent, whether I am an administrator, district leader, what is it that I am asking for? Because it's one thing to say we just want an increase in funding, but for what? What is the end goal, right? And so one of the things I just wanted to share was what I realized, and again, I just started July 1 in this new role, right? But in the staff development opportunity that we were able to provide to all of the arts educators across the district, and there's more than 250, by the way, we decided this is important to equip them with skills for grant writing, right? Because it's very important, even when we're looking at all that we're talking about, civic engagement, right? And taking action. And our theme this year is arts in action, right? So how are we moving things? So if I'm told no, if it's not possible right now, do I throw in the towel? Do I give up? What else can I do? And so as Lauren and Wendy talked about with nonprofit organizations and collaborations with community organizations, that's one piece. But how do we equip people to advocate for themselves? And that is why we decided to say, you need to know how to also apply to grants, to add more funding for these specific projects. Maybe it's a residency, right? Maybe it's a huge opportunity for your students who want to take on a social justice issue or be engaged civically through the arts. So that was something that I wanted to just bring to this conversation as well, right? Because it is important that people don't walk away thinking, wow, so I heard all of that and they told me they can't increase funding right now. So now there's nothing to do. We want people to leave empowered and motivated and inspired to know there's still something you can do. Yeah. Right? There are still other options. So I just wanted to add that to the conversation.
I'm so glad you did. And Italy, I think this is a perfect place for you to say, what can young people do? How can we use our voices? You're a young person, younger than all of us. What can young people do?
Yes. So this entire question, it took me back to my youth arts ed facilitator council days. And we had an entire session where we talked about the stigmas around art and how that affects how art is even handled and treated in terms of board cuts and funding and how parents look at it. And I think it is such an important thread to weave into the conversation because as much as it is those statistical things and like those little nicks and knacks of why arts education doesn't get the love and support that is all very much here inside this beautiful group of women, the reason why it's not reached like that in terms of that community level, I mean, we see it beautifully inside of New Jersey. I think New Jersey is one of the states that is definitely on the better end of advocating for arts education, but there's always more. We don't settle. But in that case, I think the core of it is really just coming down to how can we break down these stigmas that you cannot have a lucrative field like career inside of the arts. How do we break down these stigmas of arts isn't going to make me advance inside of college. You know what I mean? It's a lot of these type of stigmas that not only keep students from making arts their certain electives or choosing sports over arts. It's also these type of stigmas that keep members on the boards that are like, we're gonna take their funding down just a little. You know what I mean? Like, it's these type of mental stigmas and narratives around art that keeps art in a more disposable bucket when it should actually be the primary bucket. Like, a primary mainstream education is something that includes art and doesn't not have it. Because when it doesn't have it, there's critical thinking skills and then there's creative thinking skills. In order for our youth to prosper and to develop as young adults who have grounded, educated decisions, we need to have both. Because innovation does not exist without the arts, like quite literally. So I think it's important that we weave that thread into the conversation as well.
Yeah, I love that. The the distinction between, critical and creative, and we need them all. You're absolutely right about that. So what can we do now? I want you ladies to start thinking about some do nows for our audience, because we're getting people all excited, hopefully, and they're feeling all empowered, and we want to know what they can do now. Lauren, you had something to share about.
Yeah, I had a couple of things. I think, Devon raised a great point about what happens when we don't get the outcome that we're expecting or hoping for. And one of my phenomenal colleagues, Sanaz Hodra, who's been with our organization for a long, long time and has been a part of the arts ed sector in Newark for a very long time, reminds me of cathedral thinking. So it's the idea that, we're in 2024 and Notre Dame Cathedral is still not complete, right? So 1,000 years ago, a group of people got together and they had a vision for something beautiful, for something meaningful, for something extraordinary, knowing they'd never live to see the fruits of their labor. And so much of movement work, of community organizing work, is recognizing that you may not get to the masterful, beautiful vision that you have in your mind of what the future should look like and can look like, but you can get closer to it. Yeah. And you can build foundations for the people who are going to come after you and help complete the vision and help get closer to that outcome. And so I think for me, the call to action is one, just centering yourself in that and making sure that whatever fight you're about to fight, whatever issue you're organizing against or for, that you carry that in your heart. Because I think it can be really frustrating work also. I don't want to make it sound like it's always beautiful and wonderful. It is for me because I love it. Mm-hmm. But for those who come into it and can often be disappointed, I think it's very hard for people to stay the course. And so I like to remind us of the cathedral thinking and remind us about the larger goal that is at stake, that is often going to be beyond our time and beyond our lived experience. And then my call to action beyond that is to, I'm going to uplift what Italy said earlier, and it's, I want people to do their homework, but I also realize that's really daunting and that's really, frustrating. And so I'm going to raise to everyone's attention the resources that NJPAC has put together in collaboration with all of us to help people think about how they can advocate for more arts education in their community. And so there's lots of resources out there at the national, state, and local level. You have, Americans for the Arts and the Arts Action Fund, which have incredible resources online and some webinars that are really good tools to help people think about at the national level, what legislation is coming up that I need to be paying attention to, that I might be needing to write to my representatives about. At the state level, we have Art Pride New Jersey and Arts Ed New Jersey, who do an incredible job of the same, reminding us about school budgeting season, reminding us when an important piece of legislation comes up that we need to be paying attention to, and offering communities and places and spaces to meet with other people who care about the issues that we care about. And obviously here in Newark on the local level, Arts Ed Newark is a huge part of that. But then we also have other organizations like the NAACP, SPAN, Project Ready, lots of organizations that are working really, really hard to make sure people have quality, real information to help guide them in their journey around advocacy and creating change in their communities. And so my call to action is to go do that homework. Go look at those websites, go sign up for those email lists so that you can get informed and you can learn from reliable sources and help organize and plan in your community. And then, if nothing else today, please register to vote. In the state of New Jersey, you have, I think, until October 15th. So that is my vote. Vote.
I love that.
No matter what, vote.
Right.
Make a plan.
Yeah. So here we are. I'm in this room with 4 more dreamers who understand the power of the arts. And if you could dream the dream, I want each one of you to tell me what your dream would be for the arts in terms of artivism.
This question, for some reason, it sparked a line that I wrote in one of my poems. And it goes, community is what heals. The art that I'm pouring into your cup is not an accidental spill. If you took the time to genuinely be real, then we can finally seal all the wounds we have yet to heal. And I take that kind of stanza, and I feel like that is like my dream personified.
Yes.
I think that youth, not even just youth, people, adolescents, grown adults, elders, everyone, artists, non-artists, whatever, all need to seek community. Like I said earlier, COVID put us inside of a spiral of a different dynamic of what humanity and what community looks like. And I'm not saying that before COVID it was perfect, but I can definitely say it was much more grounded and much more connected than what it was before. Than what it is now. And I think that my dream right now is honestly for people to let art impact them, is to be present with it as much as possible, and to not dismiss it at the hands of being like, oh, well, that's not going to do nothing, or oh, that's not really speaking to me, like I think it comes down to letting art impact you, not just at a level of a personal level, but at a level of like, oh, I'm going to share this with somebody. Somebody needs to hear this. Who can I show this to that actually, who has the gift to be the change maker? I know that I can't do this, but I know such and such can, so I'm going to share this with them. That's what community building is. And I think it comes down to that, holding space for art and also transferring it inside of the rooms that it needs to be transferred to and building that, So, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Italy, you are so wise beyond your years. Tell us again, how old are you?
I'm 19.
19. My goodness. Did you guys notice how Italy just spit that rhyme like it was nothing? It was like a throwaway rhyme. Did you hear that? Like, and then she said that thing about like yet to be healed, because we know that arts are healing, and there's even like an Arts RX program that NJPAC, you'll hear more about that, but doctors are really starting to realize that arts have a healing impact, and they are like launching programs where they can write prescriptions for you to get involved in the arts. I love what you said about being present and letting the arts impact you. Like, don't close yourself off, because the arts really have the power to heal and to change things. I love that.
I think for me, it's more of, I think there are examples like Italy, who's just like a beautiful example of what a rich arts education helps to form, helps to create, how it is important in forming humans.
Agreed.
But I think for me, so I am a classically trained violinist, as I mentioned earlier, but I also have a degree in art and archaeology, and studied late medieval art and architecture. And so, so much of my learning as an art historian was also my learning as an anthropologist and a sociologist and a historian. Because really, the plays, whether you're talking about classical Greece or, yesterday, music, whether you're talking about, often the traditional classical canon, or you're talking about like the Kendrick Lamar Drake feud, like they all mark a moment in time. They all mark the feelings of often a community and are reflective of that, right? And so what I found really interesting during the pandemic was how connected we all were. Like, everyone was home and they were finding all of these ways to connect to live performances through Zoom, right? To connect with their own art making. And it all sort of went away when we all moved to get back into whatever the new normal, whatever we want to call the current times. And so for me, the vision is reclaiming that, like, no one had to teach any of us how to do that. No one had to, like, explain, right? People just, they bought supplies and they created. They saw themselves as creators. Or emotionally, they connected with a certain kind of music or a certain kind of artist, and they were able to find them and connect with them online. And so for me, like, that's the vision, where we've created a world that recognizes and values that innate thing about all of us that is creative and beautiful. And we don't have to demand it in the sense of keep making a case for why it's important, but where people just get it and feel it because it's a part of their universe, it's a part of their world, and we can spend our time protecting it, to Wendy's earlier point, right? And holding it. And so for me, it's like, I want people to own that part of themselves and appreciate that part of themselves. I spend so much time having to help adults reclaim the artist in themselves, because people just, there's something that happens, like, think about like a 3-year-old doesn't need to be told, like, right? Like they're an artist, they're painting, they're a dancer, they're putting on their one-room like their one-person play. Like none of it has to be, right? It's inherent in all of us.
Right.
And it's nurtured often until about kindergarten or first grade and just the things as a society that we feel kids should be exposed to. And so for me, it's like, I want us to hold on to that. I want that piece of us that's just like born into us naturally to create and to explore in these artistic ways, to just live in the ether, like through adulthood, that we would have those same conversations, that we would put on a sketch in the boardroom to pitch an idea, that we would, write a song about, what's happening politically in a community. And so that to me is the hope, is that magical little thing that we're all born with and we all possess, and is for a period of time often nurtured in us. It sort of goes to the side. And so for me, we will be doing the work, we will be like really reaching that beautiful vision of what I hope for humanity. And when that becomes a part of us through the whole of our existence, where we don't have to fight so hard for it, in all of the ways we often are challenged to.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much, that we would all get it, that we would feel it, we would feed it, and spend time protecting it. So great. So Wendy and then Devon, I want you to close us out, Devon, because you are over the largest school district in Jersey. Wendy, what's your dream? Dream out loud.
Well, mine is similar to Lauren's, and I do think it's a bit of cathedral dreaming, right?
Yeah.
Is that, because one of the things that makes me the most frustrated and angry is when I hear, I can't, and fill in the blank. I can't dance, I can't sing, I can't, I don't understand theater, I can't understand poetry, that I can't, to me, is an indicator of something really important about how we, value the arts, but how it may be being taught and nurtured in our homes. It's very much like what you were saying, Lauren, but I imagine a world where nobody will say that. They might say, I'm not Beyonce, but I can sing, and we start looking, and Rachel Gosselin, she was the executive director of the President's Council for Arts and Humanities during Obama's presidency. And she said something that always has resonated with me, is that people would see the arts as both a flower and a wrench. That and this helps the debate because, arts for art's sake debate, et cetera. But, we recognize the flower, the beauty of it, the natural beauty of creativity and imagination, how it's changing our future, just like, and it's appreciated like we appreciate nature and what it physically does to change humanity. But we also recognize that it is a tool. It's a tool, and we often maybe laugh, but we sort of see it as the closest thing to a silver bullet. Because I think I want people to understand that if you embed arts and utilize the arts, you can solve some of the most entrenchable problems that you're trying to fix, right? So if it's chronic absenteeism, or if it's graduation rates, or if it's healing, the arts have a place there. And if people were valuing it, we would not need to have this conversation. So that's our cathedral. And I want parents to feel that too, because a parent, number one thing we're hearing from young people is that they're being discouraged from parents and counselors to pursue the arts. And we have to stop that as well.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you want to cancel the I can't, because you're absolutely right. There's so much power in the arts, and there are so many iterations of it and so many expressions of it. So we can just cancel the I can't. I love that flower and a wrench, the beauty and the tool. So great. And then how practical you made it at the end, Wendy, about absenteeism, things that we can. So we're talking about voting, but right down on a local level, absenteeism and graduation rates. Me being an NJPAC teaching artist and a teaching artist for, over 30 years now, knowing that when I step up to the school, the teacher says, "Oh, the kids have been asking, when are you coming back?" They're here early. Every day they ask me, "Is she coming today? Is Miss Wincy coming today?" So what the arts does to just like bring us together and help students enjoy, and people, period, just enjoy, like I keep saying, even the difficult conversations. So great. And so, Divine, I want you to dream out loud for us, because you have the most students kind of like under your arc, and you're doing great things to like transform not only Newark, but we know these kids are, some of them will move to different parts of New Jersey, different parts of the world. So they're going to spread out into the world with your influence. So what's your dream?
And Wincy, I love the word dream. So let me just start with that.
All right.
Because for me, I like to dream big.
Yeah.
Because for me, there's really no purpose in calling it a dream, unless it's big. That's me. So for me, it's pretty simple, right? The dream and dreaming big is just, and it's somewhat what Lauren said, somewhat what Wendy said, somewhat what was said by Italy as well, but just the concept of the arts for all. A time in which we are not talking about advocacy for the arts, because the arts is just embedded, it is just ingrained in the threads of who we are as a society, as educational institutions, workforce, it is just. So when I think dream big, I'm not even thinking about all of the details and the preparation to get to that dream. I'm thinking of that ending of where we're just talking about the greatness across the planet, right? Of the arts that are just everywhere, where there's no conversation with a parent about whether or not I can pursue the arts.
Yes.
Because everyone understands that the arts are critical, that the arts is always going to launch you into truly who you are and who you can be. So it's always going to give you this safe space. It's always going to give you the skills and the tools that you need to be successful in whatever you pursue. So that is my simple dream, that it's for all, that we just see it everywhere, that there is no need to advocate for more funding or more opportunities or more positions, right? That there are just tons and tons of organizations and opportunities and residencies across the nation and across the world. That is my big dream. That's the dream.
Yeah, I love that.
Ask for it anymore.
I love that so much. And you, there's no conversation about the validity or the importance of the arts. That is a beautiful big dream. To us, it seems like a no-brainer. Yeah, but I love that. So I want to dream. I want to dream out loud really quickly with you ladies. I hate to see this conversation coming to an end because it's so rich. It's so valuable. I'm hoping that our listeners will listen again and again and again to this. My dream, that there are resident teaching artists in every school in the world. Yes, that arts get equal time and attention as, just like math, science, literacy. There's no question about, can we afford literacy this year? No, there's no question about that. So I feel like, my dream is that they'll understand that arts are just as important, that every person gets registered to vote, so that every person is registered. Everybody, that's my dream. And that everybody tunes into their inner artist. That's what, because we all have one. I think Wendy said it. Everybody has an artist inside of them. And like you were saying, when you were little, nobody said, you don't know how to paint. When I do some early childhood work, and when I say to the students, who's going to help me dance? Who's going to help me sing? I want to sing a song. I can't remember the words. Can you help me? They all raise their hand. Yes, we can help you. You think you know my song? Yes, we know it. Like the kids are just so, they're just so like confident until we start saying, you don't know how to do that. And that's not right. And that's the wrong way. And don't raise your hand because you don't know what you're talking about. So I want every person to like retune themselves to the frequency of artists, because we all have that frequency in us somewhere. And then understand that nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something. And I say that all the time to my friends, on the coalition that I'm on. And I understand nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something. And you can do your something through the arts, because the arts has like all of these tentacles where you can decide to teach anything through the arts. So thank you, ladies. I cannot thank you enough for this conversation. All of these heavyweights who took time out today. I'm so grateful to NJPAC for saying this is an important conversation, and let's use the arts to discuss what's possible. You ladies are amazing, and you're doing amazing work in your Metron and changing the world, just through the arts. And I'm just so grateful and so happy to have been able to host this conversation. You'll be able to find the resources for this conversation online. And we just want to thank you guys again. God bless you and Godspeed. And for everybody, let's get out there, let's get registered, and let's go vote.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So if you're feeling inspired like me, I hope you'll take the next important step and create a voting plan. Make sure you're registered to vote. The deadline to register in New Jersey is October 15th, so you don't want to miss that. Think about how you're going to vote. Do you know where your polling place is located? That's important. You want to find that out ahead of time. And do you prefer to vote by mail? That's an option. So know your options. That's important. For additional resources, please check out the links posted on the NJPAC website. Thank you for listening to Arts Ignited, a podcast from NJPAC's Social Justice Learning Series, a Standing in Solidarity program. For educators in the audience, make sure to complete the episode survey. You'll need to do this to receive your professional development certificate. And keep an eye out for our next episode. The Arts Ignited podcast hosts honest conversations with leading experts about how the arts can change the world. You have a burning question or interesting topic idea? We want to hear from you. So reach out to us and we'll consider it for a future episode. Now make sure to follow at NJPAC and at NJPAC Arts Ed for updates on our programming. Lastly, I want to thank our friends at Yardbird Productions for producing and editing this episode, as well as Garrett, who's a young artist from NJPAC's hip hop education program, for his original music beats. That's right. Those beats you hear. Thanks, Garrett. This podcast is made possible through NJPAC's Colton Institute for Training and Research in the Arts, founded and supported by the generosity of Judy and Stuart Colton.